My family moved to Charney Bassett in rural Oxfordshire when I was, well, before I went to school, so before the age of 5. The situation was a huge improvement on Wantage, where I had lived before. It was a new build house on a small estate in a small village, backing onto fields with a stream running down one side of the garden. But I was still in the same position in that I was in a family, and even then, I didn't feel I belonged. I think I've mentioned in a previous video that I didn't really feel I had any relationship with my mother, any closeness or warmth. Now, I don't know whether this is something that I have, whether later experiences have erased any closeness there was. But I don't remember time, spending comfortable time with her in the same way that I do with my father. It's difficult to explain this, but I never felt that I belonged in the family, that I was really comfortable with the other members. By this time, my brother had come along, I believe. I can't remember the age difference between us. And myself, it was beyond not getting on with him. I really didn't like him. I suppose I resented his being there and taking up time with my mother, perhaps. I always felt much closer to my sister, who is slightly older than myself. Although the closeness felt very one-sided, if that makes sense. She would open up to me, but I would never open up to her. And this went on for the time that I was in contact with her for another 25 years or whatever. But I did feel quite close to her. And I had some relationship with my father, more on that later, but not with my brother nor my mother. There were other things about Charney Bassett which made it uncomfortable. It was where I first went to school. And I had definitely got the message that I wasn't encouraged to mix with the other children in the village, which is a bit difficult. There was the child I was supposed to play with, allowed to play with, but I didn't like him, and his parents didn't like the way that I played, which sounds odd, but there was some incident of roughness whereby a button got pulled off his shirt or something like that. So it was a relief that that didn't persist. But he didn't go to school in the village. I hadn't thought of that before. He must have gone to some sort of private schooling. Hmm. The village school was two rooms, old building, two classrooms, one old, one new, I think. Very few children, and as far as I know, the school is still there, and it shut sometime in the 70s or 80s, and it's been empty and vacant ever since, as far as I know. Belonged to the coal yard that was located behind, or it was bought by them. But that's something else. Anything else to say general about the village? The American family that were friends of my sister, or the children were, and they had a horse. She used to go and do horsey things with them, and I guess playing with them was tolerated. although it was, if I remember correctly, a girl and a boy. They were both quite a bit older than myself, so not really friends. There were a pair of sisters who lived on the same estate, so they were again incomers, who again were friends of my sister, one probably roughly my sister's age, one a bit older. I must have spent some time, some rudimentary play with other children in the village, but don't recollect it other than messing around on the estate, part of the estate not yet built, and injuring my hand, having had a fingernail removed. It's never grown back the same. But that was one of the very few incidences of interaction with other children outside school. So having established the fact that I was an incomer, the school was peopled, or children, with local children, and they would be the children of farm workers and whoever lived in the village. It wasn't a dormitory village. It was, well, apart from the new estate, which was mostly older people, not many children there. The village was mostly small cottages, some rather nice council houses, which I think had been related to were related to county council small holdings near the village. But anyway, local children at the school. And I hated going to the school with a passion. Was I aware that I hated it at the time? It was just so uncomfortable. On the first day, come break time, I went off to walk home. It was within walking distance. I thought it was all over. I wanted it to all be over. And of course it wasn't. And that was a mortifying experience. And I think it happened again, that I had enough and went home. Good things I can remember walking to school with my sister. I don't remember at school, but I remember going to and from with her and collecting spider's web on hedges, from the hedges beside the footpath. But the time in school was awful. Again, I didn't fit in. I didn't have friends. I couldn't relate to, interact with the other children. I couldn't join in. And there was bullying or abuse, if you like, because it was physical, psychological, and sexual abuse from the other children there. But maybe more of that later. All very uncomfortable. It was here that I had my hearing tested repeatedly. I don't think there was anything wrong with it, but I wasn't responding. And this thing that happened before when we lived in Wantage and has gone on throughout my life, that if I don't hear what someone says, I don't ask them to clarify. I just nod or pretend that I have heard. I do it all the time now. It's easier than asking for repetitions or showing I can't understand. But it does mean a lot of the time I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, whatever the cause, I had my hearing tested several times. So the teachers must have realised that something wasn't right. Was it like that from day one? I think it possibly was. I can remember prayers, standing around in a circle, and not closing my eyes, as we were supposed to, and some girl there grassing me up, having my eyes open, and it being pointed out that she obviously had her eyes open as well. I only cite that as an example of the type of relationship I had with the other children there. They weren't friends. Drawing a ship and giving it a name which was ridiculed by the other children. This was when I first started in the lower class. Being moved up to the higher class with the older children, because, I was told, my legs were too long for the chairs and tables in the lower class. And God, that was even worse. Put in with the older children. Why was it done? I don't believe now, and I didn't believe then, that it was anything to do with my leg length. Why would you take a child out and put it with older children? Because it was too tall. I don't understand. But the sense of isolation, surrounded by my peers who weren't my peers. They were just, it's like a different species almost. Nothing in common. Moving away from school for a moment, whilst there, I did run away from home with my sister. I assume she'd had some disagreement, some difficulty at home, and decided to run away and wanted to take me with her. I didn't question for a moment. Off we went, off the estate, across the road, down the lane, past the village shop, out into the fields, following a footpath, I don't know. Just felt completely natural. At some stage, I don't know how far we got. I assume she got tired and we turned back. I don't know, did somebody come to find us? There are so many gaps, breaks, blanks in my memory. I do wish I could fill some in. I have been able to find various traumatic memories with the help of cannabis, to be honest. Things that I knew were there which have developed, or I've been able to see more clearly, or realise what they actually meant. But again, that is perhaps for later. Going to parties at Charney Manor, which is now some sort of weird gaudy retreat, and it might have been then. Going to children's parties, and I hated children's parties. Well, that would have been when it started, where they would have started going to them. I hated them with unbelievable strength of loathing. They were so uncomfortable. These were children that I didn't know, didn't mix with at school. Why was I there? I suppose the children in the class were invited. I don't know. I knew nobody there. Nobody to talk to. So uncomfortable. And then being the centre of attention during things like Pass the Parcel or musical chairs and the games. And the food, the repellent food. Maybe the The Charney Manor ones were Christmas ones. I remember it being dark outside. Good things. Walking to meet my father when he came home from work. He would come on a bus, a work bus, which would drop him some little distance away. And my sister and I would walk out to meet him. The road crossing flat land raised up above the fields. It must have been quite a wet area. So the road was actually almost like a causeway. And it felt like quite a way. I'll have to look on the map. He may have come to East Hanny on the bus. That was a pleasant, a joyful time. Walking with my sister, just the two of us, to meet my father. I hadn't really thought about that before. This is a new thing for me. Yes, that is a good memory from this time. I remember a glider coming down in a field near, but just beside this road, and walking out and spending a lot of time looking at it. There were other people there. I wasn't part of the group. But just watching and marvelling at this glider that had come down in a field of grass or young cereals, probably grass. But being on my own. Bearing in mind that we moved from here by the age of 7 or 8, there was a lot I seem to have done on my own. Going out into the cowslip field on my own. Playing in the garden on my own. Going to the shop on my own. Either on my own or with my sister, plus or minus her friends. Even then I found other people intolerable. A theme which has continued throughout my life. But I will stop now because these videos are taking like 5 hours to upload. So I'll try and do them in smaller bites. That is it for this evening. Taking advantage of a short evening on my own with my wife out and just doing my own thing, talking about myself for my own benefit. That's it.